Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. And today we'll talk about making the wisest and most profitable decisions on effective virtual collaboration for hybrid and remote teams. Now, as you might know, the future is hybrid. That's a phrase that's used pretty often right now, given the impact of the pandemic. Pretty impactful, pretty powerful. We've spent over 18 months working those who can work from home have spent that time working from home, especially with a Delta surge. More recently, have people who went to the office are coming back home. So we've seen that remote work has been definitely around for a long time, and companies are overwhelmingly planning to go hybrid. So up to 75% of employers plan to have hybrid schedules. This is led by large companies making the shift. You might think that, this is innovative, smaller middle market companies are making the shift. No, we're seeing large companies making the shift, and traditional companies, not simply the tech companies. I mean, I understand, companies like Facebook and Dropbox are saying we'll have remote work for as long as you want, and the rest people will be for as many people as you want from their workforce, and we'll have plenty of people working hybrid who want to come to the workplace however much time they want. But we also have traditional companies, large companies making the switch, like Nationwide, a major insurance company where permanently there's a switch to remote work for many workers. Some divisions have up to 75% of their workers working full-time remotely. The rest are coming in on a hybrid schedule. We have manufacturing companies like Applied Materials, which have a mostly hybrid schedule for their workers, with some people working full-time remotely. And we have plenty of other traditional companies. Target, for example, its back office employees are coming in on a hybrid schedule. So we are seeing large companies making these permanent shifts, and where they have the large majority of their workforce coming in on a hybrid schedule, 1, maybe 2 days a week, something like that, and the rest of it being fully remote. So minority, but a significant minority being fully remote. Now, a number of company leaders don't want that. They don't want a hybrid schedule. They don't want any employees fully remote, because they feel that their company culture really suffered during the pandemic. It was really hurt. It was a big problem. And they want everyone back together. They want the teamwork. They want that collaboration. They want the company culture, that connection. Well, here's what happened. During COVID lockdowns, the leaders of these companies, they forced office-style collaboration on remote work. So office-style collaboration. Now, it's natural that happened in the lockdowns because people didn't know any better, right? There was the lockdowns, the sudden, abrupt, major. And so what happened? Well, you naturally used what you know. There's a cognitive bias called functional fixedness, where we impose the ways that we know how to do things on the rest of our contexts, on new contexts and new solutions, on new problems. We seek the same old solution, also called the hammer nail syndrome, when you have a hammer, everything that looks like a nail, right? It's natural for it to happen early onwards, but it's very surprising that it continued to happen throughout the pandemic, that companies didn't figure out how to adapt strategically to virtual work. They kept imposing their in-office culture on virtual work, which of course leads to poor results. Relatively few companies strategically revise their culture to adapt to the new normal of virtual work, of full-time remote work for 18 months when the pandemic was raging and still kind of continuing to rage. So they achieved much better retention of employees and much better engagement of employees. Now, the reason we can't use these old methods, these traditional methods in virtual collaboration. So why is that? Why can't we use them? It seems natural, right? We know this way, that's in-office culture. Why can't we use them? Well, because we crave connection. We want to feel connected to each other, to have a community. And office-style collaboration is not really great for that sense of community. You've had those Zoom happy hours, right? That is not great. If you've experienced them, usually managers force employees to come to them. There are only very few employees who actually enjoy Zoom happy hours. Managers force employees to come to them, and that's because managers don't have any other way of having social interaction and team building. And even those weekly meetings, lots of employees are disengaged in those weekly meetings. And again, managers are trying to use the same techniques that they used in the office in the virtual workspace. And that just does not work very well. So those team weekly meetings mostly don't work well. Those, and especially those Zoom happy hours, don't work well. There's a lot of problems with such dynamics. That's why they lead often to telework burnout and Zoom fatigue and people complaining that there are way too many meetings. There are surveys showing that over 80% of people who work remotely complain of way too many meetings. That's because they just don't work. These Zoom happy hours, these team meetings, that's a big problem. So you need to figure out other ways of collaborating effectively, adapting your culture to this post-pandemic normal, where it will be mostly hybrid with some fully remote. So that's a hybrid first model. That's what it's called, hybrid first. Working on site once or more weekly for most, mostly one day a week. That's kind of will be the default for most people. Some people who need to do more collaboration will be coming in more often, but one day a week for most people, that will be the default. That's going to be 70 to 90%. So I consulted for 16 companies and helping them adapt strategically to the future of work arrangements post-pandemic. And that's what 15 of them adopted this hybrid first model, with 70 to 90% of the people being in the office one day a week or something like that, and the rest full-time remote. So 10 to 30% are full-time remote. And the percentage depends on what kind of company you are. Large manufacturing company, so there's a Fortune 200 company that's a large high-tech manufacturing company. They have much more of a culture of being present. Some people have to be present because they're manufacturing, right? Other people, just because of this culture, tend to orient toward more of a tendency to come to the office. They have more closer to 90% of the people being hybrid and 10% fully remote. Other companies that provide more services or more software, high-tech, they have more that I consulted for. They have more closer to the 70% figure. And one company out of that 15 chose to be a home-centric company, meaning that the large majority of time they're working remotely, and then just if there's a need for collaboration, a specific project collaboration, they can have employees who choose to come to the office. So that's going to be a home-first model, so a remote-first model. And again, there's an office that people can still come to if they feel that they need to. So what you need to do for that, for both hybrid teams, so whether you're coming into the office for a day or two a week, or fully virtual teams, so you're not coming into the office except maybe once a quarter for a team building retreat. For both of those, for hybrid teams and the days that they're not coming to the office, again, the days that they're not coming to the office, if you're coming in one day a week on Wednesday, it'll be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then remote employees for every day. You want to establish effective virtual format collaboration. So virtual format. You don't want to use traditional in-office culture and impose that on people's collaborative activities, on their ways that they bond with each other, on the teamwork and collaboration. So you want to discuss these changes and get buy-in on 3 key points of virtual collaboration, which we'll talk about. But again, you don't want to just impose these. You just want to talk to people about it and say, here's what we want to do. This seems like this is a best practice that has been adopted by a number of top companies, and you want to get their buy-in on these steps. But generally, here's what you want to do. So there are going to be 3 techniques that I'll talk about. 3 techniques for effective virtual collaboration. Again, for hybrid teams on the days that they're not in the office, and remote teams all the time. So every day. One is going to be water cooler conversations. So you want to replace those water cooler conversations, what managers try to do with the Zoom happy hours. You want to replace them, instead of using in-office style culture activities, you want to replace them with native virtual activities. And again, it's important to do that, to build that trust, to maintain that person-to-person connection, to create good teamwork. You want to create a morning update for teams using collaboration software. So let's say your Microsoft Teams, your Slack, your Trello, Asana, Mondays, whatever you use. Let's say Microsoft Teams, new companies, the large majority of companies with which I worked use that. What they do is they create a channel. So Microsoft Teams has channels, Trello has cards, whatever you have. For each team that has 6 to 8 people team, that sort of team arrangement. Each team has its own channel marked personal, so using collaboration software. And in that channel, each team member respond to prompts on their work and life in the morning. So that prompts would be the general prompts that were adopted is, how are you feeling right now? How's your personal life going? Share something interesting about yourself or the world that other people don't know. And finally, what do you plan to work on, focus on this day? And that's going to be a morning check-in. So that's a morning update. Now, the team members also respond to each other, so 3 other team members, after they share this. This is a pretty brief activity. It takes 5 to 10 minutes, so it doesn't take much time. And it's very contributing to their engagement. And people really like learning about these facts about the world or each other. They want to know what other people are doing, and it helps them to know what other people, how are they doing in their personal life, and it also helps them to know what they're focusing on at work in case they want to collaborate, in case they want to coordinate on things. And you know what? It's also very helpful for managers, because I've seen managers, those team leads, the supervisors, get pretty anxious about whether their employees are even working at all, because they don't necessarily know that. They can't see that, and their employee might be sick or might be off, or there might be something weird going on. So it helps them address that, and helps them, leaders also get to know what's going on with the employees in their personal life, and kind of reveal things, talk about things. There might be issues, work-life balance, stress, that the employee might reveal, and they do reveal from my experience consulting for these companies in those chats, and that the manager can then talk to them about it. It's really very helpful. So that's point 1. The second point, you want to address diversity, equity, and inclusion. Minorities tend to want more remote work than the white males. So there was a survey of white knowledge workers that found that 80% of white knowledge workers want substantial remote work. That's either hybrid or full-time remote. So 20% of them wanted to go back to the office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Now, what about black knowledge workers? Black knowledge workers, 97% of them wanted full-time remote work. Only 3% of them want to go back to the office full-time. Why is that? Well, because they're still facing microaggressions and discrimination back in the office. So that is very much a benefit for your diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives to have some full-time remote work and the rest being fully hybrid. That's much more conducive to minorities of all sorts. And we're talking about Black people, we're talking about all sorts of people, and especially people with disabilities who physically it's much more difficult for them to come to the office. So you want to address, as part of this, you do need to address digital discrimination, things like interruptions and privilege, lack of responses where those who with privilege tend to respond less frequently or in a longer time period for people who are minorities. So you want to assess that issues through surveys and then provide training to help address these issues of digital discrimination. And finally, you want to facilitate work-life balance. So you want to encourage people to have good work-life balance while they work. That is why I strongly recommend for employees to be able and encouraged to take physical and mental breaks, not sit down at 9 o'clock and get up at 5 o'clock, which unfortunately some people tend to do without realizing how much damaging it is for them. So you want to encourage employees to take those physical and mental breaks after 30 to 60 minutes of remote work, depending on how intense the work is. And it's important to include physical activities, walking around. Sitting has been shown by research to be quite problematic if we're sitting all day, very bad for our health. So breaks, that's going to be helpful for collaboration, for productivity, and it will reduce burnout, mistakes, and conflicts. All right, everyone. So I hope this presentation of why it's very beneficial for you to adapt native virtual formats for effective collaboration in hybrid and remote teams has been helpful for you. So check out other episodes of the Wise Decision Maker Show on wherever you're checking out the Wise Decision Maker Show. Subscribe to us on whether you're checking it out on videocast on YouTube, whether you're checking out on a podcast through Apple iTunes or plenty of other venues where the podcast is distributed. Send us your thoughts. Leave a comment with sharing your thoughts. Click like if you like it, and email me with any feedback at gleb@disasteravoidanceexperts.com. gleb@disasteravoidanceexperts.com. And please share about it with your friends and on social media. That's the best compliment and the best thing you can do for a podcast or video cast. So please do that. All right, everyone. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And in the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.